Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and you're very welcome to this June greenhouse tour. So in a moment we're going to step inside the greenhouse and have a look at the plants I have in there on display. I hope they won't disappoint in terms of what I have in flower and leaf and what's looking good. So come with me and let's do the June greenhouse tour. As you can see, the bubble wrap has come down, and that means that we are enjoying full sun in the greenhouse, and it's time for the plants to show off and look their best. And there's so much more light and air in the greenhouse now that the bubble wrap has come off, because that means that the overhead windows can be open during the day and the night. They stay open in the night, and there's just a bit of a breeze in here, a bit of air circulation, which is so welcome. And we're going to start off this tour with a pan up the top shelving in the greenhouse, and very soon we're going to see the new addition. So as usual, I have lots of succulents, I have pelargoniums, and well, you'll see more different stuff as we move down on the shelving. That big pig epiphyllum looking really super at the moment, and up here you can see that I have new shelving in place, and it's this wooden one here which is a brighter colour than the other one further down. So we had a unit, like a shelving unit, that nobody wanted anymore, and we were going to get rid of it, and then I thought, well, I'll get my daughter to unscrew the planks from it, and I could actually use them out here in the greenhouse because I never had enough of this shelving. You can see how it works here. So that black thing in there, it's an upturned plant pot, and the shelving just sits on top of it. And we have two planks here, so you can see there's one there and another narrow one back there, and they sit on the upturned pot. So as we've started down here looking at the new section of the shelving, I will start kind of talking about the plants down here. And the first one is this big pelargonium. Like with all of the pelargoniums this year, I didn't repot them, or most of them anyway. I just refreshed the top soil. So I had scraped off some inch maybe at the very top in autumn, and now I replaced it. And just above the pelargonium there you can see some cacti, and notably the one in the middle has a bud on it. Now this one came from Lynn from Desert Plants of Avalon a long time ago, and it's really done quite well, so I can't wait for that flower to open. And moving along, we have to stop here at the showstopper, which is the first of my disas to come into flower. So this is a bog-loving orchid from South Africa that likes to grow in wet conditions, and here in the greenhouse I have it sitting in water. This particular one is called Meganium, and I bought it in France a few years ago, and I bought it for the enormous flower. And I love disas because they're very unusual in terms of orchids. The petal shape and distribution is very different from that of other orchids. And here you can see how the disas sit on the shelving. So this container here is waterproof, and it has water in it, and I have 3 of them sitting here at the back of the shelving. And with these 2 over here you can see lots and lots of buds forming. I think I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one here is a much smaller flower than the Meganium one, but still beautiful. So very vibrant colour. I think something has eaten the lower petal there, but not to worry, we have another bud coming on the same plant. And yeah, gorgeous plants that I've grown for over 10 years and do really well with in my cool greenhouse. And I've made potting on videos etc. about them, so yeah, it's a great one. So the disas got divided and repotted last autumn, I think it was September, which is definitely the wrong end of the year to do it, but I just thought this is the time when I have a bit of time, so I just did it and they've done really well, so that's good news. In front of the disas we have something that requires completely different conditions, and this is Begonia nutans, which is that bromeliad-like plant sitting there right in the middle, and it is about to come into flower. Can you see the pink at the tip of the spines, I guess? So that is going to come into flower anytime soon. And moving just a little bit further along, we see some pelargoniums, and we see my giant epiphyllum, Douentza, which is just finishing flowering, but she's still a vision in pink. These flowers around here are a little bit fresher than others, but yeah, she's definitely at the end of her cycle. But what I love about her is that she produces a mass of flowers. And down here, if we follow down her extremities, you can see that she's continuing to produce quite fresh looking flowers. And just to keep it looking nice, I guess what we have to do is to take out the ones that don't look great. And there, that scene looks better already, doesn't it? So I've been repotting like mad in my spare time, from the Dracaena, which is in the top left there, down to this little aloe that you can see at the foot of the epiphyllum. And yeah, it's difficult to get around to repotting succulents in my opinion, because you know, they do get on with it and really don't scream out for repotting in the way that many other plants will, but they do need repotting every now and again, and this year is the year. And here are a few succulents and a cactus as well, and the one on the left there is the Gastrolera green ice, which I bought at Tatton last year, and I'm really pleased with it. I just love how this plant presents. Really, really gorgeous thing. And it's flanked by a cactus here that just can't make up its mind if it's going to flower or not. So it keeps getting buds on its head, and they look like they're going to flower, and then they just shrivel and disappear. I mean, I do get some flowers, but not the show that you would expect from what's promised. So I don't know, I think perhaps the temperatures are a bit cool. There was thunder and rain last night, so that may have seen off. There was one very fat bud on there yesterday, and I see it's gone now, so I think probably the cooler temperatures last night saw it off. And just behind green ice we have one of my codex plants. So this is a sanguinea that's been repotted, and it's just putting on new growth. And the selling point, I suppose, the spectacular point about these particular plants is the structure that they put up above the soil, and that's what they're grown for, not really for the foliage and the flowers, although you can get really nice foliage and flowers with them too. Moving just a little bit further along, we have some things looking great, like the Dudleya there in the middle, and the tall Pelargonium ardens, which is sending up buds, but we won't get to see the flowers in this video. And there on the left is my Pelargonium ardens, which has the most amazing flowers, but she's shy. She doesn't want to show us. And down further then on the staging, what will we have a look at next? So the Dudleya is a great plant from the Americas that produces this kind of white powder on its leaves, and I think this protects it from the sun in some way, but it's one that you really need to keep in the greenhouse, because if you had that outdoors in the rain, then it would just wash all the mealy off, and that is half the plant's attraction. And here we have Kalanchoe, chocolate soldier on the left there. In the middle, another codex plant, and this one is called Protea, and both of them came from France last summer, so part of the same expedition, let's just say, with Pelargonium Penny Dixon just to the right, a cutting I took from the mother plant last autumn. And this is just a close-up of the Phocaea showing you that structure that sits proud of the soil. Really, really nice. It's very small at the moment, but it will grow in time, and it's sending up leaves at the moment, so a healthy plant. And over here we have a few more little things. The Rhodohypoxis that I bought the bulbs of in spring is now in flower, and it's been in flower for a long time, and flowers are going over and new ones coming, so it's got a long display time, which I'm very pleased about. Very pleased with this little thing. Fairy Kisses is the cultivar name, and I just think they're a beautiful addition to any kind of greenhouse display or pot display. And I guess to the right what we have is an Echeveria Nuremberg, which might be about to flower, and just above it Echeveria Compton's Carousel. And here you can get an idea of the variety within the Echeveria genus, or Echeveria, I think it's correctly pronounced. The one on the right has a very grey look to its leaves, and the one on the left has, well, you know, cream and green going on. Really, you can tell that they're the same genus, but they are quite different from each other. And before we leave this staging, there is a little cutie tucked in the back that I want to show you. And this one here, oh, I don't know if I can get it out without bringing down the house, but this one here is the cutest of things. And we are going to have a close-up look at its flowers. Look at that. And the fun thing is that this popped up in another pot, so it's not something I bought. It was something that seeded into the pot of another plant, and I'm delighted to have this because it's so pretty. In the corner here we have my albizia tree that I keep in a pot in the greenhouse because it is not hardy outdoors in Ireland, and I have tried it before, so I'm keeping it in a pot in the greenhouse. And this is one with chocolate foliage, but I have a wonderful surprise this year. Could it be that this albizia is finally going to flower for me? Because the flowers are amazing, like downturned puffballs, and I think they're pink on this particular tree, and those look like flower buds to me. And now we're moving from upstairs to below, so moving down the albizia tree we have an aeonium display, which I think looks really good here, flanked by a little pink pig there to the right. So this is just a cheap thing I picked up in a supermarket somewhere at some stage, but we do have our other pig in residence. And that's of course Boo Boo, who's here guarding the entrance to the greenhouse, and behind her we have the lower shelving of the staging, so we'll have a look at that now. I like to keep some seedlings just here because it's quite shaded. Behind it, directly behind it, we have the green border that I'm making a separate video series about, and the foliage that you see here at the back is the Silphium, which casts a good bit of shade in the lower section of the staging. So it's great for just bringing along seedlings or things that have been repotted and just need a little bit of shade for the time being. In case you're wondering what that is at the front, but this is a Chempharia or a ginger, which is just waking up from dormancy. And to its left we have some seedlings, I guess. So at the very front we have Dioscorea, and this is another Quadex plant which I grew from seed just over 2 years ago, and you can see it's a community pot with lots of different plants in it. But the biggest of the Dioscorea is actually getting its characteristic scarring at the moment, and that is brilliant news, absolutely brilliant news. And oh yeah, just over here there's Begonia at the back that I just have to show you. I'll take down this aeonium and just move this Begonia to the fore. and you can see that it's the Carolinifolia one. A beautiful, beautiful plant that I've just recently repotted, and I'm keeping down here in the shade until I actually check out what it wants. Does it need more sun or more shade? But look at the caudex on that. So just kind of mooching up the staging here, nothing really interesting. I have some succulents down there that aren't looking their best. So if they look good, they go up to the top. If they don't, then they stay down below. But oh yeah, have a look at this little agave family over here. So this is a gorgeous agave that I picked up many, many years ago. And we have several generations of offspring displayed here in front of us. This isn't the parent plant. These are various stages of offspring. And the one on the right, which is called Meganium, I think, I must check with my daughter, has two siblings of equal size which are actually outside. But here's the parent plant down here, which I repotted a while ago. Well, you know, it's not doing amazingly, but these are slow plants. Nothing happens quickly with them. Left of the agave, we have my Gasteria collection, and it is shaping up to be a fine collection. Because I have 4 absolutely crammed pots full. So these probably need a repotting at this stage, but they behave so well. Like, they flower for me with tall, tall spikes every year, despite getting the minimum of care. And yeah, they're just doing brilliant. I wonder, maybe would I put them all together in one giant pot? I don't know, haven't made up my mind yet. And over here at the very end of the staging, we have my collection of dormant bulbs, including the cyclamen, which were recently repotted, and that collection extends here on the floor, where I have the larger ones that are a bit too heavy to put up on the staging for fear that they might collapse, including my bouffon, which is the one there that we're focusing on that is currently dormant. And that collection of bulbs, South African bulbs, extends here up to the front of the staging, where the ones that are in active growth are held. I've been repotting these when I get a spare moment, and this Veltimia has been repotted. Nice big pot, showing how big a specimen it is now. Hymanthus albifloss also got the repotting treatment, and I have yet to get to this one here, but the pregnant onion was also repotted. Now, this popped up last time in my house tour, because when I got it first, that's where it lived, in the house. And since then, it's been, well, repotted and moved out here. And it is an enormous specimen. And I'm just going to go in and show you some of the quirky things about it. So this plant produces a brown skin like this, which after time becomes quite loose, and you can feel just underneath the surface little bumps. And then after a period of time, the skin kind of peels away, like it's doing here, of its own accord. And you can see that underneath the skin we have these little baby plants, which you can just take off. And naturally these would fall into the pot or adjacent pots or anywhere and grow into new plants. And that's how the plant reproduces, the pregnant onion. So we're leaving behind the staging on the right and moving across the central aisle, where I just have a couple of specimen plants really, and just taking a quick look at this side, which is really quite empty compared to when you saw it last. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that mess outside, and what's going on here is that my plants in waiting are getting a revamp. So we can see a strip of plastic there on the ground, which needs to be cleaned up every year. So all the plants need to come off, need to edge it, need to sweep it up and take off any weeds. And then all the plants in waiting need to have the top inch of soil removed and be refreshed with new soil, if not repotted. And that is the price you have to pay if you don't get your plants in the ground quickly enough. And over here in the corner of the greenhouse we have my brugmansia sanguinea, which has been planted into the greenhouse border and flowers magnificently all winter with its glorious orange flowers. Now this plant was looking an absolute mess just recently, and I pruned it. I pruned it hard. Now you're looking at a picture of the plant before it was pruned, and you can see that it had designs on world domination. It was coming out in front of the opening for the door, and it was even getting broken as people went in. Absolute disaster. Anyway, cut back. That's what happened to it, and it's looking so much better now. Don't you think so? And at the moment it has one solitary flower, which we're having difficulty to see tucked away at the back there, but that's okay. And in the greenhouse border we have the courgettes, but I'm not going to talk about those in this video because I'll be making a vegetable update with my daughter before very long, and we'll talk all about the courgettes. And here is my King Protea, which is finished flowering now, and I've actually pruned it a bit, but you know what, I'm thinking of doing a more radical pruning this year and just maybe even taking out just one of the thicker inner branches to facilitate branching lower down, because when this plant was small I didn't prune it. Yeah, so maybe I'll do that. And as you can see, I have one glorious flower that still looks really quite fresh, so I didn't want to take this off because, well, why would I when it's looking glorious? So I need to do a second pruning, I guess, on this Protea. And I also have hanging pots in the greenhouse, although not too many, and this burrow succulent is in one of them, and surprise surprise, it's flowering this year. And look, it has never flowered from me before, and yet both of my plants are in bloom this year. And actually they're quite welcome. Now I absolutely hate this plant, sorry if you love it, but the main problem for me is that it looks like death all through the winter. It just looks terrible, and that's because I keep it in a cold greenhouse, not in a house. So it's also very fragile, and you know, bits break off. So see what we have here? We have these strings here with naked strings basically. So it's definitely not my favourite, but the flowering, I must say, has given it a bit of an old reprieve. And that brings me to the end of my greenhouse tour, which I really hope you enjoyed. If there was a particular plant you wanted me to mention that I didn't, then jot that comment down below, and I'll be sure to mention it in the next video. In the meantime, I have just reached 30,000 subscribers, so watch out for a very good giveaway that's coming up soon. And in the meantime, happy growing!